Okay, I'm pleased to now invite political scientist and author of the book Rise of Duterte, Richard Heydarian. Very nice to see you, Richard. Let's start by, can you tell me a little bit more about the two mayors? How high is their profile in the Philippines? Is there anything that links these two victims, since the methods of assassination were quite different?
Right. I mean, up until now, Ivan, we are not sure about what were the circumstances that led to their assassination or killing. Were this related to the drug trade? Were this politically motivated? In fact, up until today, there are up to 23,000 deaths in this country, and we don't know what exactly were the circumstances behind them. Now,
23,000 since President Duterte started his war on drugs?
This is according to the figures by the Philippine National Police. Now, it's hard to attribute all of them to the drug war or whether they were related to them. But this is a number of dead bodies that have been piling up in the country over the last 2 years, and we're yet to get to the bottom of this. So these last killings are just adding to the sheer magnitude of mystery that has been piling up over the past 2 years. Now, Mayor Halili, of course, is the more known one because he was known for parading the drug suspects. And then, of course, there were some rumors about whether he himself was involved in drug trade. President Duterte has made that accusation, but the Philippine National Police has been singing to a completely different tune, condemning the killing and calling for a very strong investigation and holding those who were accountable to justice. So, but what's important here to keep in mind that these are mayors. Up until now, I think 14 mayors and vice mayors have been killed since Duterte has taken over, and we don't know exactly why this has been happening. And these two mayors that were killed recently, I think there was another one, Nueva Ecija, further than Metro Manila recently, but these two ones are from towns that are surrounding Metro Manila. So they're closer to the centers of power, and we're not seeing much in the peripheries. I mean, we know that much of the drug-related killings happen in the slums, in the peripheries of the countries. But this time we see mayors even in some relatively major towns around Metro Manila also being targeted right now. So I think it just talks about the depth of the climate of impunity and, of course, fear that has taken over the country over the past few years.
Well, I mean, the carnage that you were describing, and that's absolute carnage, this death toll. And it's all the more striking when you consider that President Duterte was elected in 2016 on this tough guy law and order platform. He's led this war, this deadly war on drugs. So what do these two murders in broad daylight within a matter of days of each other, what do they say about President Duterte's pledge to restore law and order in the Philippines?
Well, critics will definitely claim that this is quite ironic for a president who promised order as this major platform to actually oversee a corrosive erosion and rule of law in the country. But on the other hand, I think the partisans of the president himself would say, well, in order to get into light of order, you have to go through some valley of tears. And all of these kinds of deaths that you're seeing right now are part of the process of purge. Or value of blood, for that matter. So that's the way that they try to justify it. But I think the more important political implication is this. I mean, as the Game of Thrones character said, the chaos is a ladder. The reality is that the more there is disorder in country, the more there is a climate of fear, the more actually this empowers President Duterte, because it drives more and more people towards a strongman figure to find a sense of security. So ironically, rather than undermining the president's popularity, which is very high right now, still 2 years into his office, actually third year already, this is actually rallying more and more people behind the presidents because they feel that they need a strong president. And remember, the president is also pushing for a change in the Philippine constitution, and that could also have long-term ramification for how much power the president will have over the Philippine state institutions.
Richard, what has President Duterte said about these brazen daylight assassinations?
Well, on the Halili case, the president actually implied that perhaps, he himself was involved in the drug killing, and perhaps this was, a response to that. But he didn't confirm whether this was carried out by government forces or vigilante groups or his political enemies. But that kind of line of argument has been rejected by other people, including by the police, where they're saying, we have to investigate this, and this is something that is unacceptable in our country. So you see contradictory messages between the president and the Philippine National Police themselves. But the fact of the matter is that, what's happening over the past 2 years is that you're having also erosion of state institutions. I think the president tried to promise order, even possibly in contravention of law. But what we're realizing right now is that you can only bring order by rule of law, by strengthening institutions of the state. And the reality is right now, the Philippine National Police is paying the price for that because they themselves sometimes are not clear what exactly is the command of the president, or the president is going to stand by them. And there are many instances whereby the president says something days before, and then when something horrible happens, he suddenly disowns those commands. So this is where you also see demoralization with the Philippine law enforcement agencies, and that's going to have long-term implications for the country's institutions.